Continuing to cover breaking news at this hour. At any moment, President Trump is set to meet with Iraq's new prime minister, and the Iraqi leader will, we're told, possibly talk about pushing for new oil and gas deals with the United States. Anybody in that part of the world knows that we are a superpower. If they had any doubts when it comes to energy, we are flexing big time under this president. The prime minister of Iraq's country is scrambling to fill the huge demand for oil now that U.S. forces are preparing that blockade on Iranian ports once again. And the blockade, plus Iran's attacks on ships in the Strait of Hormuz, sent oil prices back up in just the first 2 days of this week. This is where it sits right now. So we're still below 80, but remember where we were just about a week and a half ago before things got kinetic. And it is not lost on anybody that that's why Iran fires on ships. They want this to happen at home. Look, we could never, ever even go where their economy is, with the grace of God, hopefully never, ever. But it would take their dysfunction, their killing of their own people, a war with the United States to do what has happened to their economy. Ours is hanging tough. The price of oil is hovering now in the upper 70s. We'd like it back into the 60s like it has been in recent days. I want to bring in now former Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland and just hear what she said recently.
The ceasefire's over, but it hasn't gone back up. The price of oil is still, what, roughly, I think it's closed today at about $75, $77 a barrel. So what is that telling me? The Strait of Hormuz isn't that important anymore.
Phil Flynn, oil trader, senior market analyst at the Price Futures Group and Fox Business contributor. So first of all, a reaction to what KT McFarland just said about the lessening of importance of the Strait of Hormuz.
I think she's absolutely right. And that's mainly because of President Trump's policies, right? Drill, baby, drill. You know, what we were able to find through this conflict, Harris, is that the United States is now the world's biggest producer. We're the swing producer. We've taken that away from countries in the Middle East like OPEC and Saudi Arabia, and we're the biggest game in town. Now, you're talking about Iraq, for example, meeting with the president. This is huge because Iraq is now the second biggest producer in OPEC after the United Arab Emirates left, right? And they have threatened to even leave OPEC. So the energy world has changed. And guess what? We're the guardian of the energy galaxy now, not just the Strait of Hormuz with President Trump's policies. And that's going to keep prices stable over the long run.
All right. Well, gas prices aren't as stable as we would love them right now because the, price per barrel has gone up a bit, quite a bit, just in recent days. I want to flash up on the screen the national average of gas prices. We are still in the threes, but we're moving slowly, only 2 pennies for regular unleaded between yesterday and today, but today's not over. Just take a look at over the last month. So we've been kind of toggling between $3 and some change and $4 and some change. That is off, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Phil, that's off our highs just recently during this war.
It sure is, and when you talk about the Strait of Hormuz and it's important to gasoline prices and diesel prices, this was the biggest disruption in history, right? And all the experts thought that if this type of scenario played out, we would have seen gasoline prices at $10 a gallon. We would have seen oil prices at $200 a gallon. None of that's happened. And none of that's happened because the market is betting on a win by the U.S. military. And we're seeing that in the prices today. Even though we're seeing the prices shoot up today, if I look at the back end of the oil curve, they're saying this is going to be over quickly. And that's what they said in the beginning of the conflict. When oil prices were at 119, the back end of the curve said prices are going to come back down. And they did. And I think the market was right then. And I think it's right again now. So do not panic. Good times are coming on this U.S. military action.
Yeah, that is so critical for people to hear because we were reflexively pretty quick, right, in terms of getting those prices to come back down. We had on Senator Langford, James Langford, just moments ago, top the program, and he went into some detail about where we stand in all of this, too. And what we can take away from what he said was, if we become more kinetic, I asked, well, is there a temperature for that? Like, are people going to back this president on the Hill bipartisan? And he said, everybody wants the United States to win on this issue. You know what I think, Phil? They see that we can.
Absolutely. Like, everybody loves a winner, right? Hey, you know, when it's up in the air, nobody wants to jump on the bandwagon, but now it looks like it's going to win. And this is a historic win. This isn't just a little win for the president. This rewrites the global energy power structure, unlike anything we've seen probably since the Second World War, right? The United States is going to control everybody in the world when it comes to energy. If we're controlling the Strait of Hormuz, we have a big say with a lot of influence on OPEC. Major impact on China because they depend on the Strait of Hormuz. And when we look at the victory in Venezuela, raising oil production there, we're a hemispheric global energy power. And I think when this conflict with Iran is over, we're going to realize what a great benefit the U.S. economy is going to get and the U.S. people is going to get and the world when it comes to global security.
All right. I have to mention this because it's like a side-by-side breaking news story today, and that is energy when it comes to artificial intelligence. And I'm not just talking about the complete slide because I'm looking at the numbers right now for IBM and what they said they were willing to spend and what they can't spend anymore on AI. That's just a bones breakdown of it. It's more complicated than that. But they're off by like 26% of trading today. So that's a drag on the Dow, as I understand it. But the flip of that is we've got a governor in New York City who wants to set whether or not you can have more data processing centers, the energy for those in the state of New York. So energy then is in a different category. Can we still lead the world in AI?
We can if we go by the leadership in New York, but we can't if we go with the leadership of President Trump. And the answer is yes, right. And I think it was Secretary Doug Burgum that said, this is the Manhattan Project of this time.
Yes.
This is something we can't afford to lose. This is the future, artificial intelligence. Is it going to take a lot of investment? Absolutely. It's going to take all of our technology know-how? Absolutely. But it's a war we cannot lose because it's about not only our future, but the future of our grandchildren and the future of the country and really the future of the world. So we have to control this. It's going to take a lot of investment, a lot of power. And I think the private sector needs to kick in on this. If you want to build a data center, then you build the ability to power it as well.
Yeah. And that's what we said. I went to 3 Mile Island a few months ago so that I could see what the U.S. government was willing to do. Energy Secretary Chris Wright and I were there, and it's kind of old school. It looks like they closed the doors in 1975 and everything's still green. Because they did a little bit more recently than that, but they basically did and then turn the lights back on. But what that allows Microsoft and others to do is to come in and build their own data centers, supplement that nuclear power for communities, lower the prices for energy for those communities like they could in Pennsylvania. So a lot going on there with that. Phil Flynn, you and I always go wide and broad. I appreciate it. The president does too. So with the Prime Minister of Iraq here, energy will come up, a whole lot of things. I appreciate your time on this. We're still watching to see what the president will say. He's in the Oval Office. We do know that. We saw the arrival of Iraq's Prime Minister together, and now we await for that Q&A process with the media in the Oval Office. We'll take it live. Stay close. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.